Pretty much know what's above ground at Alcatraz Island.
But now a new study finds there are hidden buildings and tunnels underneath the prison yard.
Alcatraz is famous for its impenetrable walls, legendary escape attempts, and hardened criminals, but that's only half the story. Beneath the cold concrete and rusting bars, something far more secretive was hiding in plain sight. When a routine inspection took a wrong turn, what followed would leave even seasoned agents speechless. A sealed passage, untouched rooms, and strange artifacts suggested the prison may have served a much darker purpose. There's one space in particular, buried deep and built unlike anything else on the island, that no one can fully explain. What was it used for? And more importantly, who built it and why? A pre-prison mystery. In 2023, a structural survey tied to an expansion of the Alcatraz Museum revealed something completely unexpected. A wall segment in one of the closed-off areas didn't match any official architectural records. Behind the mismatched bricks was a narrow descending tunnel, meticulously built with reinforced steel supports and sealed in such a way that it had evaded discovery for decades. Unlike the known prison infrastructure, this passage had no ventilation, lighting, or documented purpose. The most startling detail: serial numbers etched into several of the steel brackets dated back to the early 1920s, well before the island's conversion into a federal penitentiary in 1934. This dating placed the tunnel squarely within the period when Alcatraz was still under U.S. Army control. The military had used the island as a disciplinary barracks and coastal defense post, but there is no formal documentation of such a sophisticated underground construction. According to Britannica, Alcatraz was fortified beginning in the 1850s and transitioned into a military prison by the late 19th century, yet no official record indicates any subterranean structures matching the tunnel's build. The design was too precise, and the materials too advanced for ad hoc construction. One anonymous FBI official was quoted in an internal report saying, "This wasn't a patch job or maintenance shaft. It was deliberate, engineered, and funded." Most escape attempts from prisons happen to be elaborate. However, even that could not be seen as comparable to this tunnel because it had no association at all with the layout known in the prison. It wasn't connected to plumbing, utilities, or access corridors that would have made it visible to prison staff or inmates. Path twisted, narrowed in ways, ultimately descending into a dark, dead-end chamber. There were no signs of makeshift work or later modification. It had been constructed exactly as intended and then sealed off. This configuration led forensic engineers to believe that its function was highly specific, possibly designed for limited or covert use. Digging further in the National Archives gave only vague references to private infrastructure upgrades on the island in the run-up to the 1920s. Such references were too vague to describe any tunnels or underground adaptations, yet both the timing and terminology seem suspicious. Given the commanding position of the island in San Francisco Bay as a dominator of all naval routes and military facilities, some researchers now argue that it has been built into a pre-federal, strategic installation by the military or even an early reconnaissance platform. Whether for observation, transport, or storage, no doubt, undermines the long-held belief that Alcatraz's true operational history began only when it became a federal prison. But the tunnel was only the beginning. What it hinted at was something far older and far more concealed. Army-era secrets. Alcatraz's history as a military asset long predates its role as a federal penitentiary. Established as a military garrison in the 1850s, the island was outfitted with artillery batteries, barracks, and coastal defense infrastructure. By the 1920s, it had become the Pacific branch of the U.S. disciplinary barracks, housing military prisoners under Army jurisdiction. This period saw extensive, often undocumented construction, including secure storage areas, fortified structures, and now, based on recent discoveries, possibly the foundation of a subterranean tunnel network that would remain hidden for decades. Despite the historical significance of this military period, much of the original infrastructure went unrecorded or was later redacted in public archives. Recent declassified files reference ambiguous subsurface utility corridors and classified logistics routes, suggesting the presence of now-buried infrastructure. According to historian John Martini, a former National Park Service ranger, subterranean work wasn't unusual for 19th-century forts, but what's being uncovered now suggests planning and secrecy that exceed routine military engineering. If true, it implies that parts of Alcatraz's underground layout were intentionally kept off the books. The specific geography of Alcatraz lends to the line of inquiry. As it lay at the mouth of San Francisco Bay, the island was able to provide a sweeping view of the entire maritime activity, including the most important U.S. Navy routes. Such visibility could be exploited for military window observation or signal interception during the interwar and early Cold War years. The leaked FBI files of 2025 list Alcatraz as one among several places designated for non-penological contingency use, a term that has become the subject of furious speculation since then. Cold War intelligence operations perhaps managed to use the old military infrastructures for cooperation, which may explain why a tunnel built during the Army Age somehow went unnoticed through all of the prison operational years. The kind of tunnel involved, however, distinguishes it from plain historical revisionism. It was not only designed very well, but also had things like soundproofing, ventilation concealing, and structures reinforced to withstand aging. These are qualities not of a makeshift or temporary installation. The evidence continues to accrue that Alcatraz might have been more than a fortress or prison because, as an island, the study and cross-reference with declassified military plans increases. It may have been a multifaceted strategic outpost repurposed and repackaged for civilian oversight, yet underground has retained other secret military functions: unmapped chambers and sealed sections. A major turning point in the investigation came during a restoration project in 2023, when contractors working in an unused wing of the main cell house encountered a wall that differed from surrounding structures. Unlike the surrounding masonry, the bricks in this segment were newer and showed signs of tampering, as though someone had altered the original architecture and hastily tried to blend it in. Once removed, the wall revealed a shaft leading to an interconnected series of rooms, chambers that appeared in no blueprints, schematics, or official architectural surveys archived by the National Park Service. These hidden chambers were clearly constructed with intent and precision. The walls were lined with steel-reinforced brackets and sealed with industrial-grade hinges, far beyond the capabilities of any inmate operation. Unlike typical prison maintenance access points, these rooms included sound-insulating features and reinforced entryways designed to prevent detection. Engineers contracted by the FBI confirmed that none of the components were recycled or repurposed from standard prison materials. Instead, they were consistent with custom-built facilities, assembled with off-site logistics support. One report noted, "This infrastructure implies planning by individuals with high-level clearance and significant funding." In one chamber, researchers found several decaying file boxes, a Cold War-era communication device, and 3 steel cot frames laid out with military precision. This suggests that the room's purpose exceeded mere storage. The clocks, which were found frozen at exactly 2:17 a.m., next to what appeared to be a rudimentary field radio and hand-drawn nautical charts, indicate an actual operational use. This was not a bunker put together for emergencies, nor a long-abandoned outpost. It bore the look and feel of a temporary command post, likely created for short-term occupation or surveillance activities under classified conditions. What makes this find so much more significant is the utter absence of institutional knowledge regarding these spaces. Former prison employees, including both maintenance and administrative personnel, have no recollection or documentation of the existence of such construction. The rooms do not appear anywhere in the renovation records or inspections under the federal period. The absence of any official record combined with the high-grade construction of the rooms, suggests a deliberate layering of concealment. With forensic historians now increasingly analyzing the materials and layout, it becomes clearer and clearer that these chambers were part of some unsanctioned or off-the-books operation existing next door to the prison system but entirely hidden from it. Strange sounds heard by prison guards. While recent physical discoveries on Alcatraz have stirred up intrigue, they also breathe new life into long-dismissed stories shared by former prison staff. Retired guards from the 1950s and 1960s have come forward to describe strange, unexplained sounds heard during overnight shifts, particularly beneath Block C and near the laundry facility. Metallic clanging, low rumblings, and what some described as hushed voices were periodically reported but rarely investigated. These sounds were often brushed off as pipe noise or environmental echo, but now they're being reconsidered as possible signs of underground activity. One particularly chilling account came from a former corrections officer interviewed anonymously in 2024. He recalled a 1961 night shift, during which he heard distinct scraping noises coming from beneath the laundry block. When he inquired, his supervisor warned him curtly, "Don't ask what's under the laundry." At the time, the remark seemed cryptic or dismissive. Today, in the wake of the hidden tunnel discovery, traced directly beneath that same area, it seems more like a cover-up. The specificity of the warning, combined with the physical evidence now available, implies that at least some staff were aware of something they were told not to question. These eyewitness accounts have been cross-examined with the FBI's analysis of architectural maps and confirm that the newfound tunnel indeed runs below those sections where strange sounds were heard. A FBI report from 2023 supported these testimonies. The shaft intersects directly with Block C substructures, aligning with multiple independent witness statements about unexplained underground sound activity. Such cohesive evidence between oral history and forensic proof has strengthened the argument for a previously hidden functional underground system, perhaps one intended for intelligence purposes. Part of the evidence indicates that most of the staff at the site might have been kept in the dark, and thus isolated from knowing any of the covert operations going on literally beneath their feet. If so, it becomes a striking example of compartmentalization within a government-run facility. The guards were left to administer order above ground, while a whole other team or agency most likely operated below without contact. With this new understanding of Alcatraz, it becomes a venue not just of confinement, but also of two realities: public operations and private agendas, living side by side without ever coming into contact with one another. Wardens Shadow. The 2025 declassification of long-buried government documents pulled back the curtain on a rumored intelligence program called Project Wardens Shadow. Allegedly active during the 1950s and early 1960s, this initiative was said to have involved a collaboration between the Department of Justice and elements within the CIA, using Alcatraz not merely as a prison, but as a controlled environment for psychological and behavioral experimentation. One internal memo from 1961 stated the program's mission was to observe behavioral responses under extreme confinement stress while assessing inmates with high strategic value. This would suggest the prison's infamous isolation was not just punitive, but potentially experimental. Project Wardens Shadow is frequently compared to MKUltra, a known CIA program that subjected unwitting individuals to tests involving hypnosis, hallucinogens, and sensory deprivation. While MKUltra is now officially acknowledged, Wardens Shadow remains unconfirmed, but closely mirrors the same principles of psychological manipulation, extreme stress induction, and behavioral engineering. Leaked field reports describe Alcatraz as an ideal lab, isolated, monitored, and controlled. If these reports are accurate, the inmates chosen for these tests were not random. Many had ties to organized crime or were suspected of foreign intelligence connections, making them targets for covert psychological analysis. It very strongly adds weight to the idea that Wardens Shadow is something more than merely a myth. Notably, the sealed room found within the hidden tunnel is physical evidence uncovered in 2023. Cold War-era encryption tools, painstakingly charted tide maps, and 3 identical cots make up a room arranged for long-term use. Especially prison standards, the structure lacked all evidence of inmate life. Rather, it built materials far beyond what any prisoner might access. According to an anonymous FBI source, it wasn't just a forgotten cell block, it was tactical, intentional, and deeply hidden. The construction of the room appears to comply with those spaces designed for temporary intelligence use, whether to house operatives or conduct sensitive monitoring. If proven true, the Warden's Shadow will put Alcatraz right at the point of the most secretive internal intelligence operation in American history. The remote location of the island, the secured periphery of the island, and the lack of civil traffic made it ideal for covert projects beyond public scrutiny. Though no agency has confirmed the existence of the program, the clamor for further declassification has grown. Investigative journalist Katie Mitchell, who has previously exposed portions of MKUltra, said, "If only a little of what is being brought into the open is correct, then Alcatraz certainly was not just a prison, it was a laboratory, hidden in plain sight." Such implications call into crisis decades of accepted history and could alter the public perception of the natural function of the facility forever. Yet, psychological tests may have only scratched the surface of what was really going on underground. Clandestine Communications. While investigating the tunnel system beneath Alcatraz, FBI agents made one of the most provocative discoveries yet: a sealed chamber filled with Cold War-era encryption equipment, including cipher wheels, rotary scramblers, and signal transmission tools that were once standard in CIA field operations. This room, found deep within the tunnel's lower quadrant, was completely untouched, sealed off in such a way that it preserved dust patterns, uncorroded wiring, and 2 clocks both frozen at exactly 2:17 a.m. The presence of such specialized equipment, completely unknown to prison records, suggested that Alcatraz had served as a covert communications outpost at the height of Cold War tension. The room's condition pointed to meticulous planning. Maps of tidal patterns and naval traffic in San Francisco Bay were pinned to a corkboard above a metal desk. A primitive radio unit was wired into the wall, capable of long-range signal transmission despite the chamber's isolation. Investigators also found coils of unused wire and schematic fragments referencing encryption protocols used only by CIA operatives between 1960 and 1964, according to forensic analysts. These tools weren't designed for escape or prisoner use. They were the kind used in field espionage and secure intelligence relay stations. Centrally located in a large naval corridor, the location of choice for Alcatraz candidates for surveillance on military activities, with the goal ranging from monitoring ship activities, eavesdropping on communications, or transmitting classified signals to the mainland. Given the historical context, such claims appear to hold water. Britannica explains how Alcatraz's elevation and visibility made it a desirable monitoring post over the ship routes. The presence of encryption equipment strongly suggests that the room wasn't merely passive storage, it was active. Per a 2023 FBI report, the room's placement and shielding imply high-level awareness and clear separation from prison logistics or correctional activity. What is most disturbing is that the room was hidden not only from physical detection, but from history as well. No maintenance logs are documenting its existence, nor any inmate accounts or guard shift records. Such extreme erasure betrays a compartmentalized intelligence presence in the know, working independently within the prison system. As one former intelligence analyst stated, the very fact that nobody has noticed this space for decades shows just how well it was hidden, from sight, not by mere oversight, but by design. The room raises the disturbing possibility that, for years, secure communications were being transmitted and received from underneath one of the most secure prisons in the world, all unbeknownst to anyone. The tunnel's true purpose. The discovery of a hidden tunnel beneath Alcatraz has led to a fundamental question. Was it built for inmates to escape, or for someone else to enter? While the 1962 escape of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers remains the most famous narrative tied to Alcatraz, this newly uncovered tunnel suggests a different function altogether. Its construction was too refined, too deliberate to be the work of desperate prisoners. Built with sound-dampening walls, reinforced steel, and sealed compartments, it appears to have been designed for controlled movement, not hasty flight. Alcatraz's location further supports this theory. Its position at the entrance to San Francisco Bay made it a prime vantage point for surveillance, especially during the Cold War when monitoring naval traffic and safeguarding military routes were paramount. A 2023 interview with historian John Martini highlighted this, stating, "The island's geography gave it eyes on everything moving through the bay. If someone needed a silent place to watch from, Alcatraz would be hard to beat." The tunnel's endpoint, terminating beneath the island's rocky perimeter and away from the cell blocks, aligns with the concept of infiltration rather than escape. Evidence found within the adjacent hidden chamber supports this claim. Encryption tools, communications devices, and signs of human habitation echo the suggestion that the tunnel acted as a secure entry and exit point for intelligence operatives, most probably relating to projects like Project Wardens Shadow. It would also explain the discrepancies in the early prison logs regarding gaps in documentation, unexplained maintenance requests, and transfers of certain staff things, which now don't look like innocent administrative errors, but rather deliberate cover-up. If the tunnel was intended to bring people in and not to let them out, then it would have required a completely new interpretation of Alcatraz's role during the Cold War. Rather than being just a prison site, it may have been a very secretive entrance into a covert operation. The idea people had about Alcatraz being inescapable, if true, might have been a myth that really just helped cover the true purpose of being a militarized intelligence node. In putting Alcatraz as a public prison above, a secret portal below, it locates it squarely in the overall pattern of Cold War government compartmentalization. Escapes that don't add up. The escape of Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers in 1962 has always stood apart in the history of American prison breaks. Ingenious, daring, and unresolved. For decades, the prevailing theory was that the trio crafted a makeshift raft from raincoats and attempted to paddle across the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay. However, no confirmed trace of them was ever found. With the 2023 discovery of an undocumented tunnel beneath the island, some investigators are reconsidering the entire escape narrative. According to a recently declassified FBI file, the existence of a concealed subterranean passage radically alters assumptions about viable escape routes from Alcatraz. The tunnel, which ended near the base of the island's cliffs, hidden from view by both guards and radar, could have provided an alternate, far more discreet escape path. Built with features consistent with professional engineering standards, the tunnel was sealed behind a tampered wall that only came to light during renovation. Experts determined it could have allowed individuals to exit the prison grounds without triggering any known security systems. One internal bureau memo stated, "This was not a crude tunnel. It was a structured pathway hidden in plain sight." The 2013 letter, allegedly sent to John Anglin, stating, "We made it that night, but barely," is given a totally new interpretation in this sense. Formerly taken to indicate a perilous swim across the bay, it may now be attributed to navigating some covert tunnel, perhaps under duress or threat. Omission of Alan West, the fourth member left behind in the escape plan, might lend credence to the possibility that only a handful of bystanders were even privy to the true location of the tunnel. If West was not told, it might have been because he would not keep the operation confidential. The probability of inside assistance has long been a matter of discussion. But the quality of that tunnel now makes this story a little more convincing. Frank Morris was a highly intelligent man with an IQ of 133 recorded against his name. Perhaps he had contacts other than that prison yard. If an operative on the inside, or even a role in the government facilitated the escape, it reframes the event not as an act of desperation, but as a calculated withdrawal. One question remains unanswered. Was this an escape or the last stage in an authorized removal? And, if the latter, what part did the U.S. government play in making 3 men, according to reports, vanish into thin air? The mystery skeleton. During the deepest phase of excavation beneath Alcatraz's newly uncovered tunnel network, FBI forensic teams made a discovery that immediately altered the trajectory of the investigation. A skeleton curled in a collapsed segment near a stagnant pool of water, surrounded by eerie remnants of what appeared to be escape gear. The skeletal figure was clutching a deteriorated canvas satchel containing hand-drawn maps, several 1961 minted coins, and cloth fragments that matched prison-issued uniforms. But it was a chilling message etched into the wall nearby that left agents stunned. "They left me here," carved in jagged strokes beneath years of mineral buildup. The phrase suggested not only abandonment, but betrayal. A full forensic analysis ruled out any connection to the 3 known escapees from 1962, Morris and the Anglin brothers, or the 4th inmate, Alan West, who remained behind. Dental records, bone structure, and age estimation did not match any known prisoner profiles from the official roster. This raised a disturbing question. Who was this person? The FBI's conclusion, leaked in a 2024 memo, speculated the remains could belong to an unregistered operative, spy, or unsanctioned presence. The absence of corresponding prison or government records supports the idea that this individual may have been part of a classified operation never publicly acknowledged. The contents of the satchel make it all more fascinating. The maps contain notations of the tides, shift markers for perimeter guards, and timing calculations, evidently made by someone with insider access. The nearby coin's near-pristine condition, despite the decades past, suggests deliberate accumulation, possibly for use after an escape. A lab report declared that the items had undergone sealant against humidity, implying foresight and planning. This assortment, together with the body near the sealed tunnel system, makes for arguable evidence towards the claim that the individual was on the mission that would have taken extensive preparations and support, maybe even sanctioned by high-up authorities. This line of conjecture has grown stronger, implying that the dead person was either an agent of a clandestine Cold War program, perhaps Project Wardens Shadow, or an operative on a mission that went astray. If the dead agency were part of an interrupted extraction or experimental protocol with "they left me here" as a possible indicator of deliberately forcing silence, then the circumstances behind the death could be quite different from what confronts impersonal inquiry. The FBI has been silent since the initial leaks, which have fed further conspiracy theories. Laura Inman, historian, would later write in a 2025 op-ed, "Whoever died in that tunnel didn't just vanish from the system. They were never entered into it. That is not just a cover-up. That is erasure." The skeleton now stands in grim testimony to the secrets that Alcatraz still holds beneath its decaying foundations. Adding an eerie layer to the mystery is the possibility that the presence of the individual was not accidental, but rather expendable by design. Dr. Marcus Feldman, an intelligence expert, suggested that this scenario is reminiscent of the Cold War disavowal tactics, where operatives would be intentionally unregistered so as to protect the agencies from accountability if their missions failed. Before agents could even identify the remains, another buried layer of secrets began to surface, one tied to something far more calculated: espionage in plain sight. For decades, Alcatraz has loomed large in the American imagination as a fortress of punishment and inescapability. But newly uncovered evidence suggests that its most infamous role, as a maximum security prison, may have been only part of the story. Declassified documents released in 2025, combined with physical discoveries beneath the island, point to a dual-purpose facility that also operated as a Cold War intelligence node. An internal FBI report put it bluntly: Alcatraz's geographic and operational isolation made it ideal for compartmentalized intelligence functions outside public oversight. This revelation reframes Alcatraz not just as a place to hold criminals, but to host covert experiments, communications, and contingency plans. Among the most explosive findings were references to Alcatraz as a Tier 3 continuity node, a term typically used to describe emergency government command centers in the event of national catastrophe. The facility's remote location and hardened infrastructure made it well-suited for such a role. Reinforced underground chambers, unearthed during restoration work in 2023, were built using Cold War-era materials and featured elements consistent with fallout shelter design. The fact that these chambers were sealed and omitted from all public records hints at a top-secret contingency plan, potentially involving the Department of Justice and military intelligence. The theory is plausible due to the findings presented in that most obscure room in the tunnel. The Cold War equipment, that includes encryption machines and field radios, tide charts, dated to critical moments of geopolitical tension. Its situation overlooking key naval routes would have given the prison the impetus to function as a listening post or later research communication relay, intercepting or sending data to other coastal stations. Alcatraz, once armed with artillery batteries and observation towers, might have reactivated this equipment under new covert orders, says Britannica. An intelligence historian quoted, "We've seen military installations repurposed in Cold War operations before, but few were hiding in plain sight like this." As secrecy is thrown back, the Alcatraz narrative, as it were, merely a supermax prison, starts to unravel. The psychological testing, the clandestine communication infrastructure, and perhaps the infiltration tunnels substantiate the case for a second mission hidden behind bars and cells. The implications are profound. One of America's great prisons may have been a node in a vast network of Cold War strategies, surveillance, and experimentation. This continued investigation has invoked calls for total transparency from agencies long associated with Cold War secrecy. If what has been uncovered so far is merely the tip of the iceberg, then Alcatraz could be the missing link in understanding the actions of such intelligence agencies operating within the country during some of the most secretive times in American history. And the voices of culture historians have recently joined this weaving story, asserting the symbolic force of Alcatraz during the Cold War. Its presence in the American media, countless movies, innumerable reports in news and public tours, contributes to the smokescreen around it, which defines the prison as something other than the main purpose implied to be impenetrable. Public perception can be weaponized, reflects Dr. Ellen Ruiz, political sociologist at Georgetown University. By emphasizing Alcatraz as a prison above all else, authorities created the perfect blind spot for intelligence work. She makes several comments on the usage of such dual-use reasons at other Cold War sites, such as Mount Weather and Cheyenne Mountain, where civilian appearances concealed the more secretive government undertakings. If this story made you question everything you thought you knew about Alcatraz, you're not alone. From buried tunnels to hidden operations, the truth might be far stranger than the legend. If you enjoyed diving into this mystery, make sure to like the video, drop a comment with your theories, and subscribe for more deep dives into secrets hiding in plain sight. And don't go anywhere. Tap the next video on your screen to uncover even more revelations that could change how we see history forever.